So what I told Adira I wanted to talk about was building communities and building community stories and how do people do that. And that's what this artist that's what he did for a living. He built stories. And one of the things that I really enjoyed when I just read the very brief description, and he talked about how he never had a precise plan for placing the elements. Instead, he lets chance and his subconscious dictate where those things were supposed to be. One of the things that we've been doing at the main library downtown is a project called the Fourth Floor, which is really a maker-learner space. It's a lab. And one of the things that we did, that we wanted the community to build it. We didn't want to build it. And so this really spoke to me that this was an artist who was relying on his instincts to develop a piece, because we as librarians have been relying on our instincts to develop a space and help the community develop a space. I believe that it is a public library's responsibility to collect and preserve a community's history. And when you talk about a community's history, you're talking about the community's stories and the city's stories. And that's really important to do. And this gentleman believed that what he was doing was he was collecting and building a community story from scraps of life. Because everything that's in here is stuff that he's collected. Whether it is the oar or the wings, these are things that he found, and then again used his instincts to place on this canvas. And in many ways, we do the same things, because some friends of mine are here, William's here, and we always talk about our parents' treasures, right? And it's like, when is it a treasure, and when is it really part of the family history, right? And librarians make that distinction a lot, and historians do that a lot. So it's really part of how we collect and preserve a community's history. And we have a local history department on our third floor that's really got some fabulous things. And everybody thinks that it's all about documents and papers, but we have like objects as well. And we collect and preserve them. We have archival rooms. And it's a part of public librarianship that people don't realize. And when people talk to me about, how important it is to hang on to books and how important it is not to lose the books, to me the books are more, for lack of a better term, almost disposable. It's the community collective items that's what I feel really, really committed and feel really important that we pay attention to and pay for. And those are the kinds of things that we're looking at right now. In a modern 21st century public library, the space is so critical to what we do. The days of us just being these big warehouses of books where you just, books shelving as far as the eye can see, those days are gone. And especially part of it is the electronic media, where our collections are getting smaller. And then also because space is becoming so valuable, it's becoming such a huge market commodity in society. I mean, find a meeting room space, right? Anywhere, it's incredibly difficult to do that, and if you do find it, it's usually really expensive. And so libraries have discovered this whole concept of being a civic space that, that you own. The citizens own the space. And so having that and we're basically creating space for the public to create those stories, to create those moments, and to change your community and to take your community into whatever that next phase is for Chattanooga. I mean, you're not gonna, there's no way this community is gonna stand still. So we're really paying attention to what kind of furniture we have, the lighting, the experience that you have when you're there. We want you to be able to bring your coffee in. We want you to be able to have lunch with us. We're all of a sudden we've become about the experience and not about that tactile, hold the book, take it home, where it's basically a transaction. The John Grishams and, that kind of, the National Geographics, and I think those are not the things that 50 years from now you're going to walk into a library really looking for to find your past. I think it's going to be, municipal records. I think open data that's happening right now in Chattanooga is huge. That's going to really tell people not just how we live, but how much it cost and what we value, because this is what we paid for. Those kinds of data projects that are going on right now, I think are really critical, and I think those will happen in the library, or should happen in the library. I think the things that happen in the city, you know, we already are collecting or have most of the documentation that describes the transformation of the downtown area. And we've had conversations about, well, first of all, we're going to protect it, and then it's how do we tell that story? And I think 50 years from now, you know, to be able to come back and see the documents and see the information and all of the people who were involved and all of the things that happened and didn't happen that brought us, you know, that brought us forward. I think those things in 50 years you'll see. I think the photographs that we're digitizing right now, I think that's a huge, important project. We're working with the Digital Public Library of America so that those kinds of images are available not just to the people in Chattanooga, but to people around the world. And we're going all the way back to all of our Civil War stuff. I mean, you know, not just taking it from today forward, or from the, you know, when you tried to bring downtown back and move forward, but taking it all the way back. So we're digitizing a lot of that older information, so that our future generations can really not just read about it, but see it, the visualness of it, which I think is really important, right? You know, we're losing that World War II generation. You know, how do we capture that? How do we make sure we don't lose their stories? I mean, it's one of the, I have friends not, you know, all over I have friends across the country who are really, really committed to capturing those audio stories, and just sitting for hours with people and tell me what you remember, tell me what happened. And those are their stories, those are their memories, because then you know, you have the two sisters, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but my mother and I don't agree on any memory, right? We're both there, we lived it, it didn't happen that way. I guess it did, and it didn't. So, you know, so it's, you know, it's still, it's that person's story, but it's still really important, and it's really important to help us remember and to understand our history. So I was talking with some state folks recently about keeping the entire run of Better Homes and Gardens that was originally published in 18, you know, something or other. And I just said, you know, we need to find a place to save this, and Chattanooga Public Library isn't it. You know, it's really not the place to do it. And somebody said, you know, when you go back, it was all of those old magazines, though, that allowed for people to go back and talk about how women housekeepers lived in the 40s and the 30s, and this is how this all worked in the 20s, and how the recipes changed, and how diet changed, and all of these sorts of things. And so the conversation we're having is, we know it needs to be saved and preserved, but who is responsible for saving and preserving a national publication like that? Should it be the Library of Congress? And again, I come from the school of Chattanooga Public Library is really, really responsible for Chattanooga. And the part that sometimes I lose sleep over at night is, you know, we've watched formats change, right? So how, you know, we went from, you know, the back of tapes to the CDs to the DVDs, you know, and now everything's in the cloud. And so, you know, and we don't know what's next. The people that I hire now to be librarians have a really high-tech background. That's who I'm hiring. Those are the new people coming in. They're either youth librarians with a lot of expertise in childhood development, or they're highly skilled in the tech world. And the days of, you know, answering reference questions and that kind of stuff. I need somebody on the floor who can help me with whatever I show up with. So the expertise is coming with the profession.
A lot of these facts are critical. Also, the interpretation of the facts may be more critical. Why is Chattanooga the way it is and not the way it might have been, is what a lot of us think about and have talked about for decades. And so I would urge you to think of a program that not only relies on the facts, because I've used your resources, and But sponsor maybe meetings that are transcribed, recorded oral histories of people who were there at the time. Why did Cameron Hill not become the site of the Hunter Museum, for example, when it could have been? There are people who know about why UTC didn't remain private. Why did it become a state branch, you see? So there are these why questions, which are critical, I think. I don't know if the museum will deal into the politics of the city or if the public library can, but I think you could provide a forum for various points of view and still remain your neutral position.
Exactly, and I think that's where our whole new focus now is space. Having those, we've talked about having salons, right, in local history.
It's kind of like what this
Kind of like this is, right, where you have,
We should be drinking.
but I'm insisting on a fainting couch. I think a fainting couch is really important in that experience. But it's that kind of an idea, because we preserve it, we collect it, we make it available to the public, but we don't interpret. Right, so by providing a forum, as you said, that's brilliant. That's exactly what a civic space should do.